Wow, wow. Here we are at another Informa virtual licensing event as part of the Festival of Licensing, and it just keeps getting better. I'm so proud to bring you another What Do Licensees Want panel sponsored by the Brand Liaison. And we've set the bar pretty high in the past. If you've watched my videos on COVID solutions or our last What Do Licensees Want panel, you know I pride myself on creating informative content, assembling engaging panelists, and bringing to you the information from best-in-class licensing partners, and we've done that once again today. Another all-star panel to share their insights, their viewpoints on industry trends, business challenges, new opportunities, and of course, best strategies for negotiating licensing deals. For our manufacturers, our licensees out there, I'm sure you're going to share many of the sentiments of our panel and learn a few strategies from our distinguished guests. But for licensors out there, here it is, once again, right from the horse's mouth. What do licensees really want? Served up for you on a silver platter. Brand owners, if you want to work with best-in-class licensing partners, this is what they're expecting from you. So let's start with some super quick intros. I'm really proud of all of the panelists that we have here today. And yes, all of our speakers are clients of Brand Liaison, but that's not why they're here. They're here to share their insights. They're here because they've built successful businesses from licensing, brands, and character properties. So without further ado, let me share my screen. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Heller. I'm the founder of the Brand Liaison. I'm also a trademark and licensing attorney. Let's start with Sam Ferguson, the Vice President of Global Licensing for Jazzwares. Jazzwares has properties like Fortnite and Roblox, Nerf, Peppa Pig, Blippi, and so many more. Welcome, Sam. Stephanie DiTiro from Extreme Concepts Apparel Company, licenses with Disney, Marvel, Warner Brothers, Ryan's World, JoJo, Nickelodeon, and so many more. I'm proud to introduce Sami Saweed, the CEO of IHL Group. IHL has licenses with brands like Tahari, BCBG, Rachel Roy, Aeropostale, Ike Behar, and so many more. And a good friend, Uni Her, the licensing director at Just Funky. Just Funky has over 100 top pop culture licenses with a focus on gaming, anime, music, and television properties. And our newest client, Matt Aravallo, the CEO of Pinfinity. And you got to see what Matt's up to at Pinfinity, an industry disruptor. So let's jump right in. And in fact, before we get started, Matt, you're the new guy here. Pinfinity is a brand new company, but you personally have a long history in pop culture with companies like Hasbro, and you're founder of Loot Crate. Tell us, what is Pinfinity and why is it being called a disruptor in the licensing industry?
Well, first off, Stephen, thank you to you and your team for assembling this panel and providing a forum for this topic. And thank you for the kind words. You know, we've been very happy with the feedback we're getting from pop culture fans and licensed partners. In fact, in 5 months of operation, we've closed up over 24 licenses, from Transformers to Tetris, Fraggle Rock, Power Rangers. And I think it's because a lot of our partners are seeing how we've taken a very highly collectible and growing interest, continually growing interest, like pins, and through our patent pending platform, bring them to life with augmented reality experiences like music, animation, and digital downloads. We just launched Pinfinity Plus, which is our subscription membership. As you mentioned, one of our previous businesses was very much focused on subscription. We are just excited about the feedback we're getting, and it's been a crazy ride so far.
Really excited to see Pinfinity take off, and good luck to you and your team. So let's expand to the rest of the panel. We have a broad group of licensees that encompass toys and apparel and fashion brands, character, entertainment properties. Let me start with Jazzwares. Sam, I mentioned some of your brands in the intro, Fortnite and Roblox and Nerf and Blippi. But Sam, can you describe generally what are the types of properties you look for at Jazzwares as far as brands or categories for licensing?
Well, obviously, hey to everyone. Great question. Honestly, great question. And probably one of the most common questions we get asked here at Jazzwares in terms of from whether that's licensors or agents in terms of, where are your gaps? Where are your gaps? Like, where are the gaps? And it's not really how, us at Jazzwares work. I think first and foremost, we just need to fall in love with the property. And whether that is preschool, if it's got to be super cute, if it's storytelling, if it's boys action, if it's a video game, really that's the first barrier entry when it comes to Jazzwares. We need to, whoever the demo is, we need to fall in love with it, looking through the lens of that demographic. And then after that, we can then, is there any conflict, etc. But really, we don't sort of work backwards. We never think, right, we really need a pre-cool property that's skewed towards boys, and it's not really how we work. And we feel like we'd miss stuff. I think it would be too blinkered. So it's a very common question, and I'm not sure everybody always likes my answer, but it's really,
listen, it's honest, and it shows also the integrity of the company if you believe in the property.
Yeah, exactly that.
And are there any financial criteria, or is it really just based on the DNA of the property?
Well, I think the DNA first. I think, obviously, Jazzwares has gone through, tremendous growth. I've been here 5 years, and in those short 5 years, we've really accelerated. We've been around, Judd started the business almost 25 years ago. So there is internal sort of turnover aspirations. We always look for a certain threshold of what the property could turn over. But it's all, that's always in the back of the mind. Again, I can't stress enough, first and foremost, it's just got to pass the love to. We've got to like it. We've got to fall in love with it, and then we'll figure the rest out.
Excellent. And Stephanie, at Extreme Concepts, I mentioned some of your brands: Disney, Warner Brothers, JoJo, Ryan. Let me ask you the same question. Describe generally what types of properties do you look for at Extreme, and what are your current goals for licensing? You have to unmute, Steph.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so sure, Steve. At Extreme, we really are looking, for kind of two, major buckets of properties, whether it's, it's new and up and coming, something that's really trending, or at a more established property that can maybe easily translate into apparel, which is, what we specialize in at Extreme. When kind of looking at the newer properties, we're kind of seeing, is it maybe being backed by a major player, or is there a lot of social media buzz and following? For existing properties, we're really looking, for growth opportunities within the brand. Overall, our goal is to really strike a balance between those two while growing, the property portfolio that we do currently have. We think to ourselves, where's the potential? How can we leverage, what the property or the brand currently has in play, and, how can we add value?
You're muted, Steve.
Steve, can't hear you.
Lucky I knew that trick with the space bar. I said the two buckets are really interesting, and it's a good way of putting it. So what are the key selling points when you're talking about Extreme, and you guys basically spun out from a bigger company a few years back? What are the key selling points? What are the key points of differentiation that you use when pitching Extreme Concepts as a licensee?
Yeah, sure. So I would actually say really our number one point of difference is that we consider ourselves a quick turn company, meaning that, from the time that we might receive an order, we can, turn it around, basically from scratch to the store within 7 to 10 business days. We really are able to do that because most of our production is within the Americas, and, being, in such close proximity, it really allows us to be nimble and efficient. I would say within that, the other unique feature is that, you know, for our production, we don't really use factory blanks. You know, we're able to customize fabric and color, you know, within those quick turn orders, just due to the long-standing relationships we have with these factories.
That's incredible. Sammy Sweet, it sounds a little bit like your company. I know you do a lot of production in North and South America. Sammy, tell us about IHL. You have a lot of higher end fashion brands. What's your key point of differentiation for your company?
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me. Yeah, IHL, we've been in business about 17 years. We design, manufacture ladies apparel predominantly. To your point, some of the brands we carry, Stahari, BCBG, Rachel Roy, Aeropostale, and more, and others. I would say the biggest differentiation that we have, actually similar to what Stephanie was saying, that today it's really important to have a shorter lead time and to get product out there, to be quick to market, basically. So that's definitely been an edge that we've had. That's helped us by building a very strong sourcing quality control team and pretty much figuring out how they like things done.
Excellent. So you mentioned some of your higher end fashion brands. Can you give us what was one of the riskier licensing deals you've ever done, you've ever took on, and what happened?
Yeah, I think we got into the licensing. We started building our licensing division about 7 years ago, and you know, we knew that we had to start with a B brand to get to an A brand. So we signed Ed Hardy, and Ed Hardy was actually on the decline. It was back then. It was not, you know, in its heyday. It was something, been there, done that, and we felt like that will get us into the licensing, building and acquiring more licenses, and it did. But that was definitely a risky move. So that's, I hope that answers.
But I like that strategy, and for those following along at home, especially newcomers to licensing, sometimes you have to start with a B or even a C brand and start to build that licensing momentum. So that's some great advice, Sam. And Uni, you've done a ton of licensing in your career. What do you look for as criteria in determining whether or not to sign a license?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Stephen. I think the formula for evaluating a license can change depending on the company, but I mean, as far as just Funky is concerned, I would say, you know, where it used to be that we could heavily look to which partners in the industry who licensed kind of the sort of the top tier categories to launch to market, whether it be apparel, accessories, or master toy. You know, today I think it requires a lot more research into what's being talked about, whether that be on social media, you know, certain online feeds, you know, Reddit, Tumblr, a lot more research into what's being done there, and as well as how licensors are planning to market a license through retail execution. Collaborations seem to be a lot more important and heavily weighted in consideration, and how those promotions are going to be communicated to the consumer, I think, is the most important key. Though it's always fantastic, I think, to hear that a retailer will be, so what I'm looking for, investing in marketing, whether it's, you know, I think historically been online banner ads or a landing page on their website at the launch of a program. Specifically, retailer interest, I don't think is necessarily the only component that compels a licensee to go deep into a program. Not saying that we wouldn't want to take part in a licensing program to a certain degree, but I think there are many other factors that.
No, but that's really smart too, talking about the marketing aspect and tying in the marketing to the properties you're taking on. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some changes in the licensing world in light of COVID. Let me start with Sammy Sweet. Sammy, you and I have worked on a lot of deals recently. What's the biggest difference that you see when you're putting together a deal now in light of COVID in the last 6 months and the uncertainty in the market? Sammy, you're on mute.
Sorry, this is happening to all of us today. Sorry about that. I was saying that was a great question, Steve. I think you just have to be more conservative and take a more conservative approach today, and make sure that the brand is very important to your retail partners and very relevant. There was a period of time that we were able to take a little risk. I think today you have to be more careful and more focused. So, whether it means lower GMRs, to be more conservative, if you take a more conservative approach there, that could be one way, but definitely more conservative approach to signing deals.
And are you seeing a willingness of licensors to be more cooperative now, whereas they might have taken some harder line positions in the past?
Absolutely. And not just that, we're actually seeing that some categories, excuse me, that were never available in certain brands are actually becoming available now, because that company either couldn't hold on to the brand or couldn't stay in business. So the answer is yes. There's more brands available, so the licensors are definitely more flexible. Excellent.
Super helpful. Stephanie, same question. What are you noticing as the biggest changes in your business in light of COVID?
Thanks, Steve. I think that there's sort of two main changes. One being really just very practical. As you know, a lot of, meetings in our area of the industry, are in person. People want to look and feel and touch our samples, whereas, now in our COVID reality, we are doing all of these things virtually. So, it's different, but it is still working. Obviously, we've, evolved as the times have. So that's sort of more of a practical change that we've noticed. And then in terms of, more of like the retail sales piece of it, we've really noticed that retailers want to react to trends really quicker than ever. Either capitalizing on really great sales with more product, or, coming to us and saying, hey, how can we maneuver around this slower selling merchandise?
Yeah, all really important. Matt, this is really challenging for you because you're launching a new business that you had planned obviously before this. What are the biggest challenges you're seeing in launching a business, in light of COVID hitting earlier this year?
Well, we're fortunate that while we've operated large businesses in the past that have had hundreds of employees, our venture studio, which is my wife and I, Guile Ventures, Pinfinity is part of our portfolio and our main focus right now. But we always focus on direct-to-consumer, distributed workforce-friendly, digital connected operations. When I was younger, I helped a lot of organizations transition to more of a distributed workforce, how to get more things done, regardless of where you're at. So it's actually, we were established, built, and launched during COVID. A lot of the patent and trademark stuff happened around December, January. We launched in mid-April, and we've seen massive growth month over month in that time frame, and it really hasn't slowed us down. I mean, I think some of the partners like Hasbro, Henson Studios, et cetera, they really get what we're doing, and they want to support it. They also, as some of the people on the panel have mentioned, are really anxious to get new product in the marketplace as quickly as possible. And so while we don't have the quick turnaround of apparel or other types of verticals, we are able to go from a signed deal to product in the market in 120 days. And that has been very successful for our relationships.
And that's
like my partner, the gentleman who created Pinfinity, who's our partner in Pinfinity, he's in London. I've never met him in person. We're 6 months into a business, 24 licenses in, raising capital and everything. And he was going to come out with his family. We were going to go to Disneyland and, hang out and everything. And to this day, I've never actually had the chance to shake his hand, give him a hug, hang out with his family. So it's definitely
great that the technology, great that the technology allows us to be able to do that. But that's incredible, that 120-day turnaround when you're doing customized AR for all of these products as well. Sam Ferguson, also getting products to market quickly. Can you describe some of the key changes in your relationships with your licensor partners, and how you're working with existing partners and new partners in light of COVID?
I think it's it's a very good question, and I think it's an ever evolving one in terms of how nobody obviously saw this coming, and it's, I think everyone would agree, in the early stages, it was, everyone just thought everything had come to a stop, a massive grinding halt. And I think every part of our licensing food chain, from retail to manufacturing to the licensor to licensing agent, impacted all of us. I guess we, from Jazzware standpoint, work very closely with Steve regarding some of the legal, outsource a lot of legal work with Steve. Does a lot of the heavy lifting on all the promises I make on all the deals. But outside,
I got your back.
You've always got my back. So I think what's been great is just the ability to, we took a breath internally at Jazzwares. We looked at our existing licensor base, communicated with them, see how we can adapt and what we needed to adapt. And I think it was just a case of communication. I think the biggest thing we've seen during COVID is, increase your communication if you haven't already. I think that's key, because everybody realized everybody needs each other. Retailers need the manufacturers need the licensors need the manufacturers, and so on and so forth. So it was just probably the first time in my career no one could point fingers. I think we all looked at each other and said, this is, force majeure, act of God, and we need to figure it out together.
Really, really well said. And Uni, I know there's been a lot of communication between you and your licensor partners. What are some of the key changes, or what are you seeing in your relationships with your licensors?
Yeah, I mean, now more than ever, I think it's important to consistently communicate the ongoings of category trends and program performance with partners. I'm finding that I'm spending a lot more time focusing on what licenses are carrying well through COVID, and not necessarily in comparison to other licenses, but doing a much deeper dive into which categories, items, and even designs are sustaining placement and growth over the year. It's important to be able to share this information with partners so as to better equip them with that information, and that can help them make decisions on whether or not to potentially consider changes in directions on programs, whether that be evaluating new channels or offshoots of a given line. There is a time when I think, we could pick up the phone and call up a licensor and say, I've got a really big order for a particular item, and I think it could bring in X, revenue and royalties. And I think we should add this to the grant so we can really maximize our exposure at retail, right? I mean, how many times have we said that line? All of us. But I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore, because there really are so many more unknowns. So it helps to have regular communication along the way when trying to plan out more thoughtfully prepared out explanations of what a partner's vision is for future growth with the license.
Excellent. And as we look ahead, to, the post-COVID world, obviously the increased communication, it's important for licensors and licensees to cooperate in building a program, and the obligations run both ways. Sam Ferguson, let's start with you. What kind of support do you expect from your licensor partners?
I think, just to quickly go back on the communication piece, I think I can't reiterate it more, what was just been said. If you don't communicate, and when you do, they know it's never good news. So I feel like, having that constant communication, that check-in, that sort of, the banter, that relation with your licensor is key, because we've asked a lot. I think the community, we know that we are not the only people hurting in this scenario. But our licensor base has been fantastic, and there's been so many ways in which, we've all supported each other, whether it's payment terms or whether it's extensions, or maybe sometimes additional grants of rights, or maybe seizing on some sort of unique opportunities. I think everybody's been open, and that's me speaking the truth. We haven't really, we've really asked and worked, and there hasn't been one sort of hard and fast ask in terms of, we don't want to pay your royalties, or we don't, we've none of that when it comes to Jazzwares. We've always, you know, if we're making sales together, everybody gets paid on their sales. But I think it's how can we collectively maximize during this time, because you know it's been challenging, been tricky, and everyone's been great. You know, everyone's been great, but if you don't ask, you don't get, and that's definitely been the story of COVID.
And also great advice. If you don't ask, you don't get. In fact, in my COVID video, and if you haven't seen it, you can click on the Brand Liaison booth in the Festival of Licensing. There's a great video on a lot of suggested license amendment changes in light of COVID. But one of them is what you were talking about, Sam. Maybe there are ways to expand the scope, expand the grant. There are non-financial solutions. Matthew, without naming names, can you give us an example of a licensor who gets it, where the licensor really gives you the help and you need to support a brand? And what are some of the specific things that they do?
Sure. Well, things are definitely different today with the product that we have, given that we have an augmented reality experience, a digital experience that needs to occur in addition to just having an amazing high quality enamel licensed pin. So we're having concurrent conversations with our partners where we need access to media. We need access and rights to music, animation, existing artwork, et cetera. And so we were very fortunate to find, we work with a lot of the major toy companies that have some of the biggest brands out there. But in particular, someone who took a chance on us very early on, I mean, months into our business, they really kind of understood that we truly get the properties, we know where they're going, we know what fans want to see, and that we need to be really creative with how we go about this product so it doesn't just feel like something that already exists out there, just copy and paste it onto a physical product. And so we were very happy to find an organization that would do that. You mentioned about minimum guarantees and no advances and stuff. We've had a couple of no's, only 2, and one was really more of a let's revisit this because you guys haven't been in business for more than 6 months. That one of the 2 came back and said, we love your product so much. Let's be creative about this. And so it was more about guaranteeing we'd have product come out to market. That's what they wanted. And the negotiation was very friendly, but we were a little shocked and we were like, okay, sure, no MG, let's do this.
That's always a great solution, by the way. And I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, about sometimes it's not necessarily a guarantee in terms of dollars, but a guarantee in terms of marketing effort, or at least product in the marketplace.
And on both sides of the table, right? We're brand strategists, we're design strategists, product developers, experiential marketers by nature. So when we talk to our licensed partners, it's not just best efforts for co-marketing. We have a whole plan on how we're going to enter. We've done our research on what marketing beats they have, what kind of industry and tent poles they have when it comes to their video game releases or movie and television releases. So they have it all laid out for them. This is how we're going to support you because we want to support the fans. So you've already done the research. You know what your fans want. We're here to build integrated product experiences that are aligned with what you're doing. And when we come with a fully fleshed out plan like that, it really does make the negotiations a lot easier. And we get from the other side their push as well. We'll get the tweet from Street Fighter. We'll get Tetris posting on their Facebook page, and we'll get those kind of shared press releases and other things that are important for a business like us that didn't exist, a few months ago.
It's really great because you bring so much with the AR and the promotion, just like, so Pinfinity, you bring a lot, Jazzware is bringing the toys, Stephanie with the apparel on the character side. Sammy, Saweed, your business is a little different with the higher end fashion brands. Can you, and I know you and I are working on a deal that's also a hybrid of production and licensing. Can you give us an example of what kind of support you expect from a licensor, and maybe an example of a licensor who gets it or one who dropped the ball and doesn't get it?
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, definitely. The typical support we would need is, we have to make sure that the licensor and the licensee is always on the same page when it comes to aesthetic of the brand and where the brand is. And that's very important. And so some of the basic support we would need from a licensor is their past prints, for example, and trends, if they have it. If not, we're gonna have to basically come up with that. But if they do, that definitely helps the design team from inception better understand what the brand is about and make sure that they design within the brand aesthetics. And to answer your second question, we've seen some licensors drop the ball. More importantly, in even selecting the right licensee. I've had a case that 2.5 years ago, there was a really good brand that we were going after. My competitor was also going after them. The problem is my competitor's specialty is not intimates, it's sleepwear, and that the license was for intimates. So, they eventually overbid, and they with higher GMRs, and licensor moved forward with them. 2 years later, a licensor came back to us and said, would you be interested in this brand? They really couldn't figure it out. So it's, GMRs are important, but this is a perfect example where a licensor dropped the ball. They selected the wrong licensee that couldn't execute the right product.
So that's important, picking the right partnership. And we've always heard that licensing is like a marriage, and you got to make sure you're on the same page. We talked a little bit, and Sammy, I'm going to stay on you for just 1 second. We talked a little bit before with the group about GMRs and deals without GMRs. What are the biggest changes you're seeing in negotiating licensing deal terms, the contractual terms?
I mean, the biggest, change post-COVID is that you're definitely negotiating shorter terms and lower GMRs, just being more conservative. No one has ever anticipated what happened a few months ago that would actually happen. The world would basically shut down and your POs will all be canceled overnight. Business comes down to zero for most of us. So everyone has that in the back of their head as they're negotiating new licenses. I would say we definitely do.
I like your idea, shorter term deals. We just did a deal, and instead of doing 2-3-year terms, which is so typical, we broke it up into 3 2-year terms, so that the licensee wasn't committing to as many dollar commitment by doing a 2-year, but obviously could still enjoy the benefit of the license if things are working out. So, Uni, what kind of changes are you seeing when you're out there negotiating new deals?
I think this really depends on the license and the company, the licensee. But I'm finding that my recommendations aren't necessarily solely focused on GMR anymore. I think there are other factors like marketing, confirmed desirable placement in areas at retail, which are attractive to licensors. I think sales into untapped channels, probably not previously considered pre-COVID for that property before, and promotions, cross collaborations all factor in to how deal terms are structured.
Excellent, and that must be a lot in your business because you mentioned collaborations a few times, and that's definitely a unique aspect that Just Funky brings to the table. So we've talked about marketing, we've talked about GMRs. I want to talk about another topic that I see a lot, and Sam, maybe, I know you and I, Sam Ferguson, you and I discuss this often. I want to talk for a second about the definition of net sales, and in particular, and in light of COVID, uncollectible accounts. Because I did an interview with License Magazine, and the definition of net sales, I said you need to allow uncollected funds to be a reduction on net sales for royalties. And everyone here knows I'm on the licensor side as often as I'm on the licensee side, but it always seemed to me grossly unfair for a licensee ships the goods to a major retailer, and the retailer goes bankrupt, or for some reason they don't get paid. They're out the cost of goods, they're out their profit, and then they have to pay a royalty on money that they're not collecting. And especially with so much uncertainty, let's start with Sam Ferguson. Sam, are you seeing licensors relaxing caps on reductions to net sales or becoming amenable to allow uncollectible?
I think that, and we really do talk about this a lot. I feel it's it's a complete mix. And, I think, definitely going forward, it is something that we are, we're always pushing for now. Anything new, renewals. I think trying to retrofit that into, current agreements, especially, big important agreements where things are rosy and you're maybe only halfway through. It's that's a conversation to be had. But I think, I can't reiterate more. I think it's an element of fairness, isn't it? I think, if we haven't been paid, it's hard to say you need to be paid. If we've been paid, of course you're going to be paid. I think, if it doesn't seem that long ago with Toys R Us, and there's probably people on this call or other manufacturers whose 70% of their business may have been with Toys R Us, and we all know what happened there. So we've looked at it, and Steve, myself, and Jazz, we've talked about this for years, but it's just really accelerated over what's happened recently. So to answer the question, they definitely are open to this. They definitely are open to it, and bring in specific sort of pandemic clauses. We've talked a bit about that, and making sure it's not under the umbrella of force majeure. It's we actually legitimately is a pandemic. Sorry, I put my teeth in. A pandemic clause, something that should now be part of a traditional boilerplate. It's all food for thought. But again, it just feels, not to repeat, but again, it comes back to communication. If the only phone call to them is, hey, can you now, I haven't spoken to you in 12 months, but can you now make sure the uncollectibles, we don't pay you royalty, it's probably not going to go so well. So,
Sammy Saweed, are you seeing licensors willing to either relax the definition of deductions on net sales or remove caps on deductions?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Steve, currently they definitely cap the deductions, and net sales definitely means shipped. But I think a lot of licensees are waking up to the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and you will ship, and a lot of cases you will not get paid, or you'll have a case where you don't get paid. So we're all pushing for it. I don't think they've come around yet. I think they will. I can tell you some of the support that we've been getting from certain licensors is maybe spreading your minimum royalty payments over a couple of months, especially during COVID. I know others were trying to totally get rid of that minimum during that period. But that support is definitely helpful, spreading your payment. In regards to net sales, we're definitely pushing for that. And I think they'll come around sooner than later, especially after the whole COVID period.
And then one piece of advice, I just did this with another client, and Sammy, you and I talked about it. Even if the definition of net sales doesn't allow you to deduct an uncollectible account, but you're shipping someone who is a little bit shaky or might not be credit approved, you can talk to the licensor at that time and say, hey, I have a huge order from XYZ. But we at least get consent that if we don't get paid, we're not going to have to pay a royalty on top of this. And go back to what Sam Ferguson said, just keep that communication, because the licensor is going to want that product. They're going to want a shot at the royalty. They're going to want the product in the marketplace. So they may be willing to work with you, even if not at the time of signing, maybe at the time that you want to ship. Let's just turn to retail channels. Stephanie, I'll pick on you. Long before COVID, we saw a steady shrinking number of brick and mortar retailers, independents losing ground to big box. Within the big box world, there's mergers and acquisitions or reducing the number of doors. Stephanie, how has the shrinking number of retail accounts changed the way you do business at Extreme Concepts?
So, at Extreme Concepts, we're actually sort of fortunate in this regard. The shrinking number of retailers honestly hasn't affected us as much in the apparel world as it may have in some other areas. We do feel the loss of, a Kmart Sears, JCP, very shaky, not sure what's going to happen there. This said, we really are heavily focused on expanding e-commerce, you know, whether it's with an Amazon or, you know, within some of our brick and mortar retail partners that have e-commerce, you know, Target, Walmart, you know, some of the other mass market, you know, big box retailers. You know, I think the way the retail industry has sort of been evolving has forced us to become streamlined, you know, less room for error, you know, but, you know, at Extreme, we welcome this challenge. So, you know, ultimately we sort of think of it as, you know, when there are less dance partners, you know, you have to be the best dancer.
There you go. And you guys, you're a great dancer. So, Sammy, how has Sammy Saweed, you're dealing with some of the, you know, bigger apparel companies and a lot of shrinking retail doors. How has that changed the way you do business? What do you do to try to make up some of that lost business?
Yeah, I mean, you got to increase your business with whoever's out there today. And one of the ways to do it is, you know, have an edge over the competitor. So they have a reason to want to grow the business with you. So having great brands is very helpful, obviously, but then also making sure that your production, that your designs are right on, and your production production lead time is shorter than the competition. So that's definitely basically being more focused on whoever's out there today.
Great. Building the footprint at the retailers you're working with. And
yeah,
you and Stephanie both had a similar theme. And
great minds think alike.
Sam Ferguson, you mentioned Toys R Us closing. In the toy industry, you're seeing a lot of this contraction. How has that retail environment changed the way you do business at Jazzwares?
Well, I think, you know, Laura Zabersky, one of the partners, my boss, and heads up the sales, has always talked about incremental opportunities. So our role is we sell toys in the toy aisle to the toy buyers, but that incremental opportunity is really super important now. I think that's where you can drive the extra dollars. That's where you can drive, you know, different price points. But really, you can start showing a story and a footprint at retail. So actually having the ability to maximize with the retailers these, you know, like pick up and go, check aisles, check lanes, you know, all these sort of incremental opportunities is super important to Jazzwares, and we know it's even more important now during these times. And then the obvious piece is just e-com. You know, e-com is always been super important. You know, everyone's talked about e-com. I just feel personally that COVID has brought e-com sort of 3 years further forward. And it's interesting because every market around the world is in a different position. You can look at Amazon. Amazon is in a different position in every market in the world. I just think it's just massively accelerated, you know, the e-com landscape.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up e-commerce because I was talking about this recently with somebody. A decade ago, e-commerce was an afterthought. Some businesses, you know, maybe had a little bit of e-commerce, and you know, I think there are probably some people on the panel today that don't even focus on e-commerce yet. But if we're talking about e-commerce, let's start with Matthew, because you rely almost exclusively on e-commerce and e-marketing. Matt, tell us about your e-commerce and how you work with the Amazons and Shopify's and your licensors.
Sure. So, you know, this early in the stage of our business, it's really important for us to own as much of the customer experience as possible. With our last business, we did almost $1 billion in sales, and 95% of that was direct to consumers. It was because we had hundreds of thousands of monthly subscribers paying us a fee to become a member. And there were some challenges and ups and downs, and a lot of us have taken the learnings of that last company and really applied now, you know, years later, those same kind of best practices and strategies. So we always start digitally focused. We're big fans of Shopify. We've built stores for other people in the past, and so it was very easy for us to develop a site, make tens of thousands of dollars very quickly by, you know, paid performance marketing and really leaning in and handling all of that kind of in-house. I think there might be a specialty online store play for us as we continue to get, like I said, we're at about 24 licenses. As we continue to get some more less niche IP and more broad IP. Because we have a patent pending platform that is unique to us, I think there might be some opportunities. But for us, we're also a little nervous about how well that experience is going to be managed by a third party. I don't want to say anything negative about Amazon or other places, but you lose a lot of that. You don't have access to those users. They're not your you're not in charge of the entire experience. We like making sure everything from the initial email you get to your service and support, that we can manage best in class white glove across all of that. And so it's surprising to some of our licensed partners when they ask, what's your Amazon plan? We're like, there really isn't any in the short term. Take a look at our pro forma, look at how subscription and our membership opportunities are going to add to your bottom line. Look at how our royalties are going to increase as we develop these membership experiences. And that's why we recently launched Pinfinity Plus Gaming. Pardon me. That's our gaming subscription, which gives you 2 exclusive pins every month, as well as a series of perks just for being a member. Community activations, exclusive content, a behind the scenes look, and an ability to be able to actually have a say in the products we manufacture and the licenses that we go after. And that's the kind of focus that we're currently having.
It's really great, and I want to contrast that. I'm going to bring Sami Souid back in. It's really great because you focus on that direct relationship, the communication with your customer, principally on your own communication, relying less on Amazon's or third-party sellers. Sami, tell us about your e-commerce business, how you work with Amazon, and then even say Walmart.com and the .coms of your brick and mortar.
Yeah, so there's no doubt that e-com is the way of the future and where the majority of the business is going to end up going. We started building an infrastructure to support the online about 3 years ago. And we are starting to see that our partners, retail partners, brick and mortar, are starting to also build out a e-com platform, as well as making sure that they dedicate a team for that, including separate buyers, etc. So yeah, I mean, we're literally, when producing product today, we definitely allocate certain inventory and styles from the get-go to the e-com business to make sure that they're getting that support. A few years ago, only 5 years ago, we never even thought of doing that. I think we're maybe even a little late to the game, but I would advise anyone, especially with brands and in their company, great brands, to start building that e-com infrastructure.
Do any of you, and I'll ask the whole panel, you'll have to unmute if you want to chime in. Do any of you see licensors controlling the e-commerce, having a licensor brand website that you're selling through or selling to?
Well, for us, I'll be brief because I just spoke. I want to obviously let everybody else have a chance to speak. For us, again, we talked about risk mitigation, during COVID. A lot of the licenses we're taking on are North America only licenses with the opportunity to expand. So some of the partners we have, like Capcom, Tetris, that have owned and operated stores in other countries, like Capcom has an official store that's amazing in the UK. We redirect traffic that comes to our website that has a UK address. And if they land on the Street Fighter page, they get shuttled over to our pins on the UK side. So that's kind of a odd answer, I guess. But I guess, again, for us, because of the augmented reality component and having to show what that video experience looks like, we're just very protective about what that product description and the media that's used to promote the product for other partners, and prefer to kind of keep it in-house currently, and thankfully are able to meet our guarantees and satisfy our partner relationships regardless of having that kind of wider spread.
As we're talking this through, and if anybody else wants to chime in on this, just unmute and I'll see it. But I'm coming up with another webinar that we'll plan for later this year on a holistic e-commerce strategy. And that's your own websites. It's using the third parties like Amazon's and Shopify, licensors' websites where many brands, and Sami Souid, you probably see this with some of your higher end brands, are running a website, and then even some print on demand. So a holistic strategy to e-commerce webinar coming up. So before we conclude, I just want to talk about one other quick trend that we're seeing in licensing. and that's called cause licensing. We've seen like Susan G. Komen and American Red Cross be very successful. And quick plug for seltzer licensing. I know Stu does American Red Cross. We have Robert Irvine and the Robert Irvine Foundation for U.S. Veterans. Let me throw this to Uni. I know you personally, you're getting more involved in social responsibility and causes. Uni, what are you seeing in cause licensing?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I'm really personally very passionate about. I think it's an interesting aspect of licensing and brand extension. And I have been focusing more of my attention to looking at cause marketing as a potential lure to engage the conscious-minded consumer, and looking beyond not just like a net sales proceed give back to every item sold, or like a one-for-one model, but really kind of evaluating how a brand or IP can leverage their equity tied to a cause that means something to the brand ID and their consumer. I think, admittedly, at first glance, that the business and the revenue model may seem a little backwards by focusing on increasing the customer base first and driving sales second. But I think by focusing on outside the box avenues of channel outreach, specifically, such as, what have we done? Limited time exclusives on social media channels first, or D2C driven viral campaigns, I think it can help bridge that fear of pursuing cause marketing related collaborations due to potential lack of ROI. It's an interesting mechanism. I'm personally very passionate about it, and I'm excited to present more opportunities to colleagues in our space in the future. I've seen the approach work with entertainment and lifestyle brands, and can see a potential pathway in the future.
Always great to be able to find a way to give back a little bit. Anyone else want to chime in on this? Matthew, you must see some things with social
yeah, just briefly, I mentioned a lot of how we do a lot of direct to consumer, but we have been very successful in working with large organizations on direct sales, right? That's part of our process. So the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, through an esports relationship, they're doing this beautiful jersey of all these teams, pink and white jersey, to support BCRF. And we're going to create a pin. What's great about our pins is they're dynamic. So if you have digital content, you want to get through all the social media channels, and you want to make sure you cut through all that noise, we can create augmented reality experiences that showcase your brand, the work you're doing, the cause that you're supporting, and even show over time, refresh that content in the future so that you can actually celebrate it. So you can have content that's tied to the pin before, during, and after an activation to celebrate promoting, actually doing the activation, and then celebrating the results afterward. And that's been really helpful for us with conversations. And it's actually opened up. I mean, obviously you want to make sure that what you're doing is true to the cause. You're not using it for other means, but like you mentioned, Stephen, it is good brand awareness. And if you're truly aligned and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's not just, oh, that's a great way to get our name out there, but you believe in the cause and you lean in and roll your sleeves up and go above and beyond. It's been very helpful for us with companies like Amazon, Netflix, et cetera, where we offer that. We say, this is something we're interested in and we're passionate about. So we're talking about this IP over here. What can we do to help support your initiatives for your employees and other ways? Because we're passionate about that as well. We're all about uniting people around the things that they love. And that could be Transformers and Farscape and Star Wars, or it could be supporting the environment and other causes and helping to kind of give back.
Excellent. I got to get you and Uni on a call after this webinar. Listen, such great information. Before we wrap up, and if you've watched my webinars before, I have that one final words of wisdom. In our virtual audience, we have many licensees that have the same issues, the same problems. We have many licensors looking to understand what they need. With that said, let's get final words of wisdom to all the licensees and licensors. What advice can you give them to earn your confidence and be in a position to work with you? Sam Ferguson, let's start with you. Final words of wisdom.
I'll be cheeky, I'll have two. So make sure you've got Steve and Hella as a pal. He's a great support to Jazzwares from a licensing and a league, supports our legal team. But no, that's one. But I think, obviously I'm going to say communication. So just keep talking.
Excellent. Uni, final words of wisdom.
I think I have to just absolutely echo what Sam just said. I think the days are always a little bit brighter when you have Stephen in your corner.
I'm gonna turn bright red. Stephanie, final words of wisdom.
So I'm also going to have to echo what Sam just said as well. But I would also add that, we're really, at Extreme, we're really looking at, excellent licensor support and flexibility, in all aspects of, the deals that we have.
Excellent. Sammy Saweed.
So I think the constant communication, as Sam mentioned, is definitely important. It it helps build the relationship and better understand both sides. And finally, I definitely agree, having Stephen Heller on your corner is very helpful.
Thank you all. Matt, final words of wisdom.
Yeah, Stephen Heller's great. Yeah. No, we're a new partner with Stephen and his team, and we're very happy. I've been in this space for only about 10 years or so, and it is very relationship based. So I think it's exciting to have a great partner like that. Look, I also have a new business, so I'm going to plug it. So part of my word of wisdom to partners is, we found a lot of success in people being open about really not being so strict about roles and lanes when it comes to things. Introduce us to your marketing and your promotions team. Let's talk to your digital team, because we want to take your content and marry it to your physical product in a way that hasn't been done before. I don't know. Obviously, there's bigger names on this panel, but that people know their websites. But for us, if you do want to learn more about what we're doing, which is a message to licensors as well, I guess, you can find us at pins.ar, which is pins.ar, and you can find more information about our company and reach out.
Excellent. And listen, I want to thank all of you, A, for participating in the panel, B, for that super flattering comments. A little embarrassed.
Pay us later.
Flattered. And listen, I love working with all of you. I'm really honored and proud to call you a friend. For those watching at home, if you have any questions for me or our panelists, hop into our virtual booth, the Brand Liaison, email me. I'll be sure to get back to you. And thanks to Informa for this wonderful platform. We'll see you on the show floor. Have a great Festival of Licensing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.